Nessa, we're political pundits now.
Reporting live from New York City right now for the MeidasTouch Network.
Nessa
Katrina
off air.
and Nessa here. That's right. We are now joined by the founder himself, Ben Meiselas. Ben, thank you so much for being here and helping us and telling us what is really happening in the world. I mean, congratulations on all of your success. MeidasTouch Network has officially taken over. We celebrated all the wins last time. The wins keep on coming, so we're going to keep on celebrating. But Ben, I know time is limited for you because literally you are booked and busy. Let's jump right into this. What is going on with Social Security? Are we going to have ours?
I think that it's definitely under assault, and I think we have to take it very seriously.
Okay.
Elon Musk has referred to Social Security as, quote, the greatest Ponzi scheme, and we know that that's a precursor to Elon Musk going after things. That's what he said about Medicaid and all these other government agencies that he's attacking. We need to take that threat seriously. Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, kind of in a mocking fashion, said that his mother-in-law, who's 94 years old, if she didn't receive a Social Security check, she would not care, he said, and she would just, because she's done nothing wrong, that she would get the check the next month or whenever. And he said the people who complain about not receiving their checks on time are likely the people committing the fraud. It's a word-for-word quote that I just gave that he said on the All In podcast that he's Trump's Commerce Secretary. Also, we know Elon Musk and others in the Trump regime have lied about finding, millions of people who are getting Social Security checks, who they say shouldn't, like dead people who are getting it. And we know that's false. So, and we also know that they are firing, thousands and thousands of people who work at Social Security Administration, and they're shutting down at least 47 Social Security field offices already. That's guaranteed that they're shutting those down. So they're gutting it from within, even if there's not a total shutdown. And look, lots of people who get Social Security are older, and they need offices close to them if they have to show up in person. So if no one's on the phone and they can't get in touch with people and they can show up at the office, it's not like people who are senior citizens, for example, can just easily travel to another state or hundreds of miles away to go to a Social Security office. So it's already under attack. And just look in New York, the Hudson Valley region, a MAGA Republican Congress member by the name of Mike Lawler. He's like, what the heck? You're cutting me right now? You're cutting the Social Security office in my district. I'm a Republican. It wasn't supposed to happen in my district. So we're seeing this across the country. It is a big issue, and I think that that's what they're trying to do.
For people who are just, learning about politics, sorry, Ben, but what is Social Security? Just so people understand why this being dismantled is devastating to the average American, whether they feel it now or not. Their grandparents or their parents might, be dependent on Social Security, and what the future looks like for them. Can you just explain, just give us some context on Social Security in general?
Look, Social Security is something that we've all paid into.
That's right.
They like to call it, an entitlement, like as though, this is something that, we are spoiled with, and oh my gosh, how dare we get this? But, when we're working, you'll see that X amount of dollars is given to Social Security, which is supposed to be a kind of social safety net for when you retire.
That's right.
And then, once you reach the retirement age and you qualify for Social Security, you are getting, these checks because, people retire and they're not working. And what we saw happen in the Great Depression is people who were retired or of a certain age could not afford to live. And so they would either die or be homeless or not afford rent. And so we as a society said, how do we kind of create a fund that is that we pay into when we work? So it's our money, and frankly, the only fraud, that to me that I would be concerned about, and the only Ponzi scheme are billionaires putting their hands inside our fund,
Our
and taking
hard-earned fund.
our fund. It's our fund. It's the fund that we paid into and taking it for whatever, they're already billionaires. It's like y'all have your private jets and you have your yachts. Y'all are good. You can support generations on top of generations for 100 years. Like, why are you going after our safety net that we paid into? And that's what they continue, that's what they continuously do. There's other services that the Department of Social Security, provides when you get a Social Security number, when you're born. I mean, there's other services that exist as well. But ultimately, what the fundamental issue here is, will people who paid into a system not get their checks?
Oh my gosh.
Are they trying to stop the checks, or are they just trying to make it harder for people to get, or is it one leading to the other?
What the billionaires are trying to do is stop this whole system that they call a Ponzi scheme and that they say is riddled with fraud. And they say people are getting the checks who shouldn't be getting the checks, which is a ridiculous statement to make. Now, one of the biggest expenditures of the government is Social Security. I mean, so all of these cuts that Elon Musk and Trump are purporting to make by cutting the salaries of these federal workers represents a fraction of the federal budget. The majority of the federal budget comes from, health, Medicare, and comes from Social Security is the largest, and the Social Security bucket's the largest, and also defense spending is among kind of the largest line items that's there. So all these cuts that they're making, even if you got rid of every federal employee, you wouldn't make a dent at all in reducing the actual federal expenditures. The way you would do it is when they go, we're going after entitlements. That's the language that they use, which is to go after Medicare and to go after Social Security and to go after the social safety nets. So that's ultimately where they're going. And ultimately the question is, well, why? What do they want to do with it? Well, they either want to privatize it so that they can make money off of it. They want to divert the money to their own kind of, as Trump's talked about it, his sovereign wealth fund, the Trump funds, Trump cards, Trump this, and have it be controlled by the billionaires for them to kind of manage and dish out. And so I think there's a profit angle here, greedy billionaires having this disease of greed that just they can't stop, and they see money, so they go after money, even if it's from the most vulnerable. And then I think also there's a component of here that authoritarians thrive in impoverished nations frequently, because if you can keep people to just accept breadcrumbs, you have the image of the dictator, of the Saddam Husseins and the people, like in the Kim Jong-uns, doling out their little breadcrumbs and thank you. That to me, that's antithetical to the American dream.
Okay. How about the Department of Education, Ben? We heard that Trump signed an order to end it. What does this mean? And please give us context on the importance of the Department of Education, what it does for us, and with what Trump did, how's that going to impact everyday Americans?
It's important to note an executive order is not a law. So Congress created the Department of Education by a law and have augmented it or taken from it based on laws. Okay. An executive order is just a directive to how the laws should be enforced. Trump wants his executive orders to be authoritarian decrees to do things that legislation's required. So even though Trump's saying shut it down, he's ultimately going to need, in theory, Congress to pass a law that shuts it down. But what he's going to try to do is basically what we just said when it comes to Social Security, right? Which is to kill it from within and to fire everybody, get rid of the employees, because you just have the, remove the little house, remove the pieces, and then the whole thing kind of collapses, and then it effectively gets destroyed without having to go to legislation. So that's what they're trying to do. what Trump and the Trump regime try to make it seem is that like the federal government sets education curriculum and you know, and oh, the woke this. First off, it's ridiculous. Number two, that's not what the Department of Education does. States control their education curriculum. Education is a function of the states. But states, often particularly red states, don't have the resources to help, for example, disabled kids, to help poor kids, to help with scholarships, you know, for people, and to administer financial aid, you know, and to do things like that. States aren't equipped for those things. So states set the curriculum, not the feds. The feds help in kind of these partnerships to help the most vulnerable and to try to bring the states up. And red states depend on the Department of Education services far more actually than blue states, which is one of the ironies here. This is going to hurt Trump's voters even worse than the blue states, but it's going to hurt blue states. So programs again for lunches and helping disabled students and you know, the schools get money from the feds to do those things. You know, and also if there's discrimination, and this to me is one of the angles why they don't like the Department of Education, because there's also an anti-discrimination component of it that led to one of the first things in bringing our country away from a horrific segregation past was education and bringing people together in schools from segregated schools. And I think that's one of the things that ultimately the Trump regime doesn't like, and they prefer there to be segregated schools, and they want their own Trump curriculum to be put in place, you know, which states already have their own curriculum. And so, again, the people who are going to be impacted by the cuts to the Department of Education, it's going to impact the most vulnerable, the disabled students, poor kids the most. You know, and then, of course, the Department of Education through student loans, helping people, you know, helping people have a chance to get to college, and Pell Grants and these grants, you know, all of those things that help people. They want to take that budget and then they want to put it in other areas that they're going to control as well. And then the question is, you know, what are they going to use this money for? And I think that, again, Trump wants a Saudi Arabia MBS style sovereign wealth fund where he doles it out. And so, you know, he wants to rip that Department of Education budget for himself. And, you know, it's, to me, it's just sick. Like the consistent theme here, Social Security, who's he attacking? Seniors. Department of Education, who's he attacking? Teachers, poor kids, disabled kids. Who's he attacking? Veterans. He's attacking people who served our country, disabled veterans, by, you know, cutting 70,000 workers at the VA, who often themselves are veterans. There's a theme here of who gets under attack. And then what are they focused on? Trump gold card, sell citizenship, not making this up, to Russian oligarchs and to Chinese oligarchs for $5 million per citizenship, that you buy a Trump gold card. That's one of their things. You have the Trump administration, like the regime I call them, they go on Fox and they tell people buy Tesla stock, buy $30,000 Tesla robots. So, you know, you see the formation here of a Putin-style oligarchy. And what is Trump also trying to do? He wants to conquer Canada. He wants to annex Canada. And he keeps on talking about, why is he saying that? Because he's not being funny. He wants to conquer Canada the way Putin went after Ukraine. That's how Trump sees Canada. And so the people in Canada see that language and they go, this isn't just a trade war. You've declared a war on Canada. Mm-hmm. So the people in Canada we have a big Canadian following. MeidasTouch podcast is the top podcast in Canada.
Wow.
And our Canadian supporters are like, nah, like the Trump regime has declared war on us. So you see tourism down in some areas, 85 to 90% Canadians not coming into the United States. They're not buying American products. And as that starts to show up in economic reports, you're going to see a massive hit to our GDP. But just think about that. Trump spends his days attacking Canada. I mean, he's like a demented sick person.
So for like the Department of Education, the Social Security, how likely is it that he's going to effectively stop these, and by when? Because it sounds like he's gearing up to stop. Like, how likely will that happen?
I think at some point it breaks. I mean, the executive order is a directive to dismantle it. What is alarming about all of the things that he's doing, but I do want to leave us on hope and not just leave people with, because there's actually, I think, reasons for hope. But we're seeing the bad stuff in the data, economic hits, stock market, they call it corrections, 401ks, that you'll have days up, down, and then he does a stupid tariff thing, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down. And there's a clear trend where this is heading, and a GDP contraction right now. And the question is, are we going to hit stagflation? There's already signs of that. Stagflation is high inflation, low GDP. It's very problematic. So the question is the thing is, we're seeing the bad stuff in the data now already, which is, I think, premature. Most people thought that would maybe pick up in May, June, because a lot of the things that we're talking about with gutting these agencies, the event happened, but then, to use a crude example, the death happens later. Like the virus has been injected, and then the death happens, but you can't stop it once it's there. And the problem is that he's done those things. So does it happen in May or June or July or next September or next January, February? But the poison pill has been inserted, and now it's working its way through the government and collapsing it from within.
Okay.
Wow.
So you said
I thought
hope.
you were leaving us. Yeah,
You said
I think
hope.
you said you're going to leave us with hope. So Ben, please.
Here's the hope. The hope is also, I'll start with the negative side, but it's a positive side too. Lots of people are going to let you down in these moments. I think people who you've looked to as leaders, or who you thought were going to step up, or media people you liked or whatever, are not meeting the moment. They went to Mar-a-Lago, they kissed the ring, whatever, they hanging out with right-wing people all of a sudden. You're like, what? How did this happen? Companies that you thought you were with are showing that they're actually not with you. There's a lot of that, and it's going to disappoint you. But I view that as a positive, because there are going to be people who rise to the moment and step up in these moments. And, to me, when I look at what's happening in Denver on Friday, 34,000 people showing up to a Bernie Sanders AOC rally in Denver. Then they were in another city in Colorado, population 108,000, 11,200 people of a population of like 10% of the whole population showed up there. The day before, they were in Tempe, Arizona, and 15,000 people showed up. And their speeches are growing in size. Yeah. And I think they're going to be able to fill stadiums soon. And they're speaking in red areas, red state areas. You're seeing people like Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear stand on the side of the LGBTQ community, proudly standing up for marginalized groups. A Democratic governor in Kentucky standing strong on those issues. And I've interviewed a lot of governors now on the MeidasTouch podcast, and I won't name drop a ton because I'll inevitably forget one and then feel bad that I left out a great crew of people. But there are a lot of governors who are out there actually standing on the side of workers right now and not sacrificing their values. They need people with convictions. They need people who are going to fight for them. That's what's needed in this moment. And that's what meeting the moment means right now. And people are pissed. People don't want wishy-washy crap right now. They don't want corporate lingo. They want people speaking directly to them, fighting for them, calling this authoritarian regime an authoritarian regime, and not backing down. And I think you're going to see the size of these rallies grow. I think you're going to have a groundswell of protests over the summer, a democracy summer, where it's going to be unlike anything I think we've seen in the history of this country. I think that's where it's growing. I think Trump is a weak and pathetic individual. I think that he's incompetent also. I think he surrounds himself with weak and incompetent people. And his regime wanted to knock us down in the first 50 days or so. Hitler took over Germany. Different historians say different things, but the furthest one is 54 days. He did something called synchronization, took control of the whole German government, media, everything. 54 days, Germany was done. We're in the late 60s now, whenever this drops, 70s, and I think the resistance gets stronger by the day, and I think Trump waffles a little bit and wavers with his agenda, and he's all over the place. And the international communities rallied. France, President Emmanuel Macron, Prime Minister of UK, Keir Starmer rallying. Canada went from people expected their Conservative Party to win to now people are rallying behind the Liberal Party, which is standing up against Trump, led by a new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. The Liberal Party is now expected to win, whereas the Conservative Party in Canada was sucking up to Donald Trump. I think that's a big development right there.
Right.
So you have this alliance, a coalition of the willing internationally forming that's kind of pushing America aside, the new leaders of the free world. And, and I think Trump's wavering. So that gives me hope.
We are going to be checking back in with you, Ben, because I have no idea where things are going to be in a day, let alone 2 weeks or in a month. But we appreciate you so much for filling us in and helping us understand what is happening and that we all need to take it serious. Please check out Ben on the MeidasTouch podcast, which, by the way, has been ranking #1 across the board. All right. This is huge. Great work from the entire team. Ben Meiselas, not only, a great political analyst, he's a lawyer. He knows what he's talking about. Okay. So if you try to come after him, guess what? He can come after you. He has our back too. So don't come after us. But no, Ben, we really absolutely appreciate you. And we love everything that you and your brothers are doing. I can't stress it enough. We have to support just great outlets. And you have created that with the MeidasTouch podcast. Get everything, MeidasTouch Network. All right. They are on it all day, every day. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you.